I just love to play basketball. I love everything about basketball. You know what I'm saying? I love the way the ball smells. I love the way the gym smells when it's sweaty. When the shoes, when you're walking down the hallway and you hear the shoes screeching on the floor when somebody's playing the game before you get into the gym. I've always wanted that smell in the gym. I always wanted it for like some cologne. I know that's probably weird to say, but the smell just, it makes the hair on my arm stand up. It's like the girlfriend you never had. You know what I mean? Like she's always done everything right for you. You know what I mean? Y'all have had maybe 1 or 2 arguments throughout your whole life, but no matter what, she's always been there for you. So a lot of guys say, you know, I married the game of basketball. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can say that in some aspect, but my game was just a part of my life. It was an extension of who I am. I played basketball because that's what I love to do, but it was an extension of who I am. You know, I played basketball with a lot of aggression. I played basketball with a lot of drive. I played basketball with a lot of heart, because that's just, I don't know no other way. Well, I'm in a motherfucking row, man. I ain't never lost 3 games in a row in my life, let alone my father. What's his name that came with us? Dame, like, you know what I mean? You travel all this way, nigga, put him in the game, he get fucking 6 fouls. Don't let him come all this way and not use his fouls or anything, like, but this is my thing. We don't fucking practice. We don't practice. Every fucking team we play against, nigga, when we play them, every team we play, nigga, got about 10 motherfuckers, 10 to 12 motherfuckers on their team. And they come every game. Every time we play, nigga, we have a different lineup every fucking time we come.
Ohio's got just a tremendous basketball legacy. The late 60s and early 70s of Columbus City basketball pumped out tremendous talent.
Just like Dwight Lamar, Eddie Ratliff, Nick Connor, Michael Redd. Those names are synonymous with high school basketball.
You had Bo Lamar. Before that, you had Calvin Murphy, Rick Mount, and Pete Maravich, Johnny Newman, Travis Machine Gun Grant.
After the 70s and early 80s, there was kind of a lull there, and it picked back up around the 90s. And 3 names that roll off your tongue at that time. The first one comes out is Esteban Weaver.
Esteban, there's really nothing he couldn't do.
You only heard about him. I mean, how good he was, how he was ranked over Kobe Bryant, how he was #1 player in the nation at some point in time.
That's the main name you heard growing up, you know, Esteban Weaver.
You know, he's a living legend.
He made you proud to be a part of Columbus basketball.
Esty was a show. He was like an entertainer.
And I think about what I saw in Esteban Weaver. I think of players like Kobe Bryant.
I don't care, you had Smucky Walker, who's from here, went to the NBA. You know, you had Antonio Daniels in the NBA, Gary Trent in the NBA, Michael Redd in the NBA. Those guys not ahead of Esteban Weaver.
He was a genuine jewel that had God-given talent.
I mean, the hardwood classics, that's Esteban Weaver.
You always see his acrobatic shots that he always used to make. I mean, how do you do that, man? You get fouled, you turn in the air so many times.
The best players, guys that went on to the NBA, he played against them and most times outplayed them.
When he's on the court, he stood out.
Some guys in the NBA that, you know, they still talk about Esteban, how good he was.
Better than LeBron James at the same age.
Michael Jordan, then it was Esteban, now it's LeBron.
He was the standard, man. Esteban was the standard.
And I would also ask, you know, why isn't he, you know, somewhere else, you know, like, you know, playing in the NBA, or why didn't he go to big time college? And
we all saw his greatness, but he never saw it. That's tragic.
I was born August 13th, 1977. You know, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised. My original full government name is Lauren Esteban de Jesus Weaver. I don't know, my mom, she named me. You know, she gave me all my names. I think Lauren came from, I think it was like a detective, a guy detective that played on the TV show back in the days. And then she named me after a Mexican boxer named Esteban de Jesus, and he was horrible. Well, I actually YouTubed him, and I watched him, and I couldn't believe that she would name me after somebody that was getting their ass kicked all the time. Like, but I found out later on that she was kind of infatuated with him. You know, she said he was cute. And when I have a son, I'm gonna name him Esteban de Jesus. And she wasn't bullshitting. She named me after him and stuff. So.
Well, before Esty was born, my family were in sports. I was carrying Esteban. I was 4 months pregnant, playing basketball at Columbus State.
I grew up in Pondexter Village, which was on the east side of Columbus. I grew up there from the time I can remember. I think I had to be 3, 4. We moved from there, from Pondexter, actually right up the street to Hawthorne. Me and my 2 siblings, me and my 2 sisters.
Esty was, he was a hyper little kid. Some things were so funny that you couldn't even get mad. You would have to sit down and just laugh, but thank God everything was okay. And always talking to people. I was over to my friend's house, had a swimming pool. So Esty said, "Mom, let me go swimming." I said, "Okay." So I come outside, probably about 5 minutes later. He's over in the sauna with some ladies. He's about 10. I said, "What are you over there doing?" "Oh, nothing, Mom, I'm talking." I said, "Oh, get out of there." They were like, "No, ma'am, he's fine over here." I was like, "No, he's not. Come on, Esty." I mean, with just everybody, and you had to keep your eye on him.
I think my mom bought it for me. It was my mom or my dad. One of them bought it for me for Christmas, and it was the first time. I think I was like 5.
Like 3, 4. It was very young. I can't remember.
I was like 4 or 5.
Yeah, about 4.
That was the first time the first time I was introduced into an actual real basketball. Like, I've always had like the toy basketballs, the little Nerf basketballs, but that's the first time that I actually got a chance to break open a real basketball, because they came in the little cardboard box covering. So that was the first time I broke it open, and my dad pumped it up for me. And since then, I never put it down. I took pictures with it. I slept with it. If you took it away from me, I lost my mind. According to my family, my mom, my dad, my brother, like everywhere I went, it was like that basketball was like Linus with his blanket. I didn't want to go to school. Like, my mom, when she would take me to school, she would let me carry it like all the way to the door, and then I would have to hand it back to her to go to class. And then in order for her to get me to go to class, she would say, if you want your ball, you got to go to class, and you can have it when you get home. So, like, at that age, at 5 years old, I loved the basketball, not really knowing the game of basketball, but I loved the ball so much. I was willing to, at that time, at a small age, I was willing to do anything for the basketball. My oldest brother stayed with us for a little bit, but he couldn't stay with us for a lot of reasons. Him and my father never got along. He just couldn't take the ass whippings. So, he moved and started living with my grandmother. Then it was just me and my sisters. That's when I started going to getting familiar with Beatty Recreation Center. Like, that's where I really started figuring out that I was athletic.
He was about 7 when he really started playing and dribbling, and he used to just walk around the house, just dribble and play and make his own basketball hoops.
I didn't know that I was going to be talented in basketball yet. It was just a kid growing up at the rec center, just, having fun, playing all the sports, football, basketball, and we was one of the unfortunate families. We was less fortunate, so back then they had free lunches, and that's where, I met majority of my friends, because we all stayed in the neighborhood in Pondexter, so we was always going to Beatty. Man, what could I say about my father? He was a great provider. He was a ball player, like I said, from the South, came down here, him and his brothers, my uncles. That's when I started to meet some of his friends. He always took me to the gym, and that's where basketball started for me. Just being from a little kid, I can always remember, the screeching of the floor and my dad and them playing, and just, even when I wasn't paying attention, even when I used to run behind the bleachers, and be hiding behind the bleachers, having my own little game under the bleachers, I would always constantly hear that screeching, that arguing. You can, and then smell the sweat and just everything. So I don't know. It's just I don't know. To me, it's kind of indescribable. He was that he was that type of person you wanted to be around, but it was just always just for a quick second. He never really wanted to spend no real quality time with me, and I never understood why. That shit was some bullshit. Sometime down the line, he started hanging out with my uncle Monty. That's when he got hooked on drugs. I think it started off in coke.
I think that kind of took Esty for a toll. He thought his dad would never, and I thought never ever too.
And that's when my mom kicked him out. My mom loved him to the point where, most people can try to love somebody through their habits, but my mom, she loved him so much that it hurt her to see him like that. Once he moved out the house, then that's when, I pretty much became, the man of the house at a young age.
I get there on France Road on that Saturday, and there's nothing but hoops from 5 blocks long and all striped off to play 3-on-3. They never lost a game. They dominated. I never saw so many dunks between him and Kenny Gregory in my life. And once I saw him play and the moves he makes and the passes he makes, I immediately said, I got him covered for AAU ball.
Jerry Watson was having the shootouts at Capitol, where he was bringing kids in from all over the country, and I remember Esteban playing, and that's where I saw him play for the first time, and that was quite an experience. I thought obviously he was much older, because I don't think the first time I went there was any other junior high kids there. And they played a 9th grade group, and then they played a 10th grade group and 11th grade group, and he'd play in every group, and he was as good as anybody all the way up to the seniors.
The first time I remember Esty was Linwood Lamar brought him to a gym. A lot of the old timers, Columbus old timer guys that played in the basketball league would get together and go against each other. And man, that young man put on a show, and he more than competed against us adults. So I said, hey man, this is something special right here.
It's kind of hard being in the house around all women all the time. I needed some type of release. My older brother wasn't there. My father had just got kicked out, so I'm there by myself now.
Esther used to sneak out a lot. I didn't even know he was doing basketball leagues or even out of the house, My daughters had to let me know.
So now I don't have no male figures to look up to. I lived in the house my whole life with women. So any chance I get to, break free or do something, I'm out, I'm gone.
And so while I'm thinking he's playing basketball all the time, most of the time he did, but some of the times he didn't. And I had no idea at all and they said, well, he played for different teams, and I would see it in the paper or in different books.
I tried to talk to him about character, and I tried to talk to him about the path he was on and direction, and I'll never forget his response to me. His response to me was, look, man, I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to end up stinking in some alley. At that point, I kind of backed up and I let it alone. Period. I felt like I wasn't welcome.
My mom was able to slow him down, and plus talking to him more than I did and showing him things more than I could, because I had other kids also.
I bounced around as a kid. We stayed in Poindexter from my birth up until I think I was like 10, maybe 10 or 11. Then we moved up north. It was called the Windsor Terrace back then. It was like one of the roughest neighborhoods that you could ever be in at that time growing up. We stayed here for 4 or 5 years. This house right here, this house caught on fire. It was this dude, like mentally, he was like just crazy. And he set the whole house on fire, and the whole side of the house was on fire, and it like melted the fuck out of our house, like the whole house. We in there sleep. I never forget it. My uncle came running upstairs like, it's a fire. I woke up and literally like you can feel the heat in the house. Like that's how hot it was. It was melting the whole side of our house. So we end up getting everybody out and everything like that. And then shit, once they shut it down, that's when all the motherfucking mice and shit start coming from over here to over there. Cause it was an abandoned house. So they used to come from over here to over there. Then one day I was in the front and some dude came from walking down here with a long trench coat on, all black. And he just walking, and it was another guy coming this way, but I wasn't thinking nothing of it. Just, you know, you see two people walking. Dude came up with the trench coat, opened up the trench coat, pulled out a shotgun, blew dude face off right here on the curb. The next couple of days, we moved. No bullshit, got the big ass U-Haul, the biggest one we can find, and stuffed everything in there, and that's when we moved over to the south side. The end of my 8th grade year was crazy. And in the summer of my 8th grade year, I graduated from Sophomore Middle School. I was out playing ball as usual with the fellas. My mom called me in because I had got some mail. And when I got the mail, I already knew what it was. You know, my mom didn't, but I knew what it was. And I was just, you know, I was excited because I knew it was me getting invited to the Nike camp. And this, you know, this is the top 100 players in the whole country, you know, coming from everywhere. And I was excited. And it was a big thing for me because I had did something that only 3 people in Nike basketball history ever done has, you know, and this is, Nike has only invited high school players from 9th grade, you know, to 12th grade. And I wasn't even in high school yet.
At the time, Nike All-American Camp was like the big thing to go to. And the best of the best was there. You know, you had to be top 50 or 100 or 75, whatever the number may be. And, you know, from Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and Steph Marbury, and just go down the list of great players that was there. Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson. But yet there's this whispers about this kid from Columbus, Ohio.
When I first got there, I was amazed. Like, I'm a fan of everybody that I'm seeing. The fun thing, the most fun thing about being down there was just playing and competing and seeing all the different talent that was down there. Now I'm still in the 8th grade, so I'm a fan. I'm just looking around like I can't believe that I'm here with all of these players. I bonded with a lot of people down there, even with Allen Iverson. And Allen Iverson was a rock star for real. Like, you know, and when I'm seeing all this, I'm like, that's how I want to be. I want people to look at me like that. I want to be able to be, when I go back to my high school, I want people to look at me like they look at them. When the tournament was over, when the camp was over, by class, when I left there by class, they put me at number 1. And these cats that I was ranked above, NBA, 10, 12 years. So, you know, that right there lets me know that I knew that I could play.
That's the first time I got a chance to see him play. He was the young kid that was always being spoken about since like 6th, 7th grade.
And I think going down there and playing with the best made me feel like that I was the best. When I went back home to Columbus, I felt like I was the best in my city.
He had the skills that I would consider as good as you can get for a middle school, high school player. And that's what drew the attention of everybody across the country. Coaches would come in all the time to watch Esteban Weaver because what he could do best on the basketball floor was he had great acceleration, great explosive moves, and he could shoot the basketball from long range.
I think Ray Stein from the Dispatch came and said, I never thought I'd be doing this, but I'm going to an 8th grader's press conference where he's announcing where he's going to school.
And then he came into Hartley, you know, everybody was expecting big things from him. You know, everybody knew he was going to be on varsity, he was going to be a starter, but we didn't know, you know, how good he was going to be, what kind of numbers he was going to put up because, you know, he was going to be a freshman playing against, you know, juniors and seniors.
We played Lancaster the first game of the season at Hartley. His first shot was an air ball. You know, he missed the rim and everyone's, you know, so of course there are a few people there chanting air ball and da-da-da-da. And then, I don't know, he ended up scoring like 25 and we won by 20.
The thing that stuck out to me right away was his generalship as a point guard, handling the ball, threading the needle consistently, reading the defense, understanding tempo and pace.
They didn't have high school defenses where kids could understand rotations to shut down an Esteban Weaver.
I think he averaged like 23 points a game as a freshman, and was pretty much one of the top 5 players in the state.
The one game he scored 45 on.
I mean, we won the district finals by like 30. And I mean, we were just beating the snot out of everybody. We won the regional semifinals by 25.
I personally went to St. Charles to see him play and couldn't get in the door. I had to scalp a ticket outside, a high school ticket for $20 to get a seat.
The craziness after the games and stuff, I mean, it was like the Beatles. I mean, we'd go out of places and it would take us forever to get back because we'd have to do autographs.
It was like the purest of basketball players were watching just to see how graceful and what he would do.
He was a good defender, a high energy guy, a good motor. We think he could pass, he could score. There were really no flaws in his game.
He just continued to get better. He continued to have that chip on his shoulder, and that's the thing about Esteban. On the court, he had no problems.
We had a lot of friends that lived out here. My dude Mike stayed there. My dude Mike and my dude Sean, we went to Harley together. We'd always come over here, you know, just doing what teenagers used to do, just cut class, you know what I mean? Bring some of the females over here, smoke a little weed, because this is where all the action was, you know what I'm saying? That's where most of the kids stayed at. Whether you went to Harley, like some kids went to Harley, some kids went to Walnut Ridge. So it was like you had a mixture of, you know, city, school kids, and then you had kids that went to Bishop Harley, and people didn't know that, even though Bishop Harley's a private school, you know, so you would think, okay, Bishop Harley, you know, think for the rich kids, which most of them, you know, parents had a little money, but shit, a couple of people that lived here went to Bishop Harley. Shit, I went to Bishop Harley. Man, I didn't, you know what I mean, I didn't live over here at the time, you know, I stayed further down with my grandmother. I stayed on Morris Road. I was commuting from Morris Road every day. You know, we wasn't as fortunate as other kids. You know, sometimes we didn't have, you know, clothes that other kids had. You know what I'm saying? We went to Charity Newsy. Like, I'm not a person that can say, you know, I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth until I got to high school. Then the spoon came. Then, you know, as a freshman in high school, I'm literally living an NBA lifestyle. You know what I mean? I'm #1 in the country. You know, I got my homeboys in the streets taking care of me. I got money. I can drive cars. I mean, I can literally call them and pick up a car, go pick up a car at one of their houses. You know what I'm saying? Couple thousand in the armrest. You know what I mean? Weed to smoke, whatever. I just wanted to be a teenager. And when I was in the streets with my friends, I was able to be that. You know, when I went to school and, you know, I was behind the camera and the newspapers was out there, I felt like I had to be somebody else. You know? But in the streets, I was just Lauren. You know, they didn't even talk about basketball. You know, they don't ask about how many points I scored. We just talk about other stuff. We do other things, hang out, and, you know, just do stuff that we did in the streets.
I think he was probably getting home late at times. And in fact, his freshman year, I remember in particular, we sat him out the first tournament game because his grandma said he came home real late. And so she sat him out. She told me he's sitting out. He's not playing. And all 3 Columbus TV stations were there and filmed. They were there I think they were there almost half of the game, at least half the game. Filmed very little of the game. They just kept filming reactions of him on the bench. And then he finally covered his face, so they just wouldn't take any shots of him. And, you know, so now they put a shot of him and saying, you know, and people are saying, oh, look at him. Well, it's because he said, you know, what, Coach, I didn't want him taking any more pictures of me. They should have been taking pictures of the game. We're playing good.
How big was the pressure to live up to everybody's expectation? How big was that, and how did that affect you?
The basketball pressure wasn't hard.
Okay.
It was fun.
Okay.
You know, I love playing basketball.
if he didn't live up to his own expectations of 30 plus, he got down on himself. Okay, he says, everybody wants me to score 40 every night. I said, Esteban, you're not going to score 40 every night. I said, let it go.
I actually don't know how he was able to handle all of the pressure. I understand where you can spiral out, you can lose control because you lose a sense of direction.
He had great support from his mom, from his sisters, from his grandma. You know, he always had all kinds of people at the games, close relatives that weren't just hangers-on and, you know, trying to do things like that. They were just supporting him. They just loved watching him play. But, you know, at times, you know, he was like he'd probably tell you, you know, he probably got away with a lot of stuff, you know, that he shouldn't have got away with.
Overhead, guys. Make it a location, give me a light.
I got a call to come get Esteban. They pulled the car over. Esteban was in the car. They found a pipe in the back seat. The guy knew who Esteban was. He said, is there anyone I can call to get you home? And they said, call Mr. Yates. Esteban's in the cruiser. The guy turns him over to me and lets me take him home without anything being in the newspaper or anything. I just went out of my way to make sure he didn't get negative publicity.
I didn't know about all those outside pressures he was getting from the parents and from the AD. I didn't know all that because he, like I said, because he was like a father figure to me. So being that way, you know, as a father would, you know, you're not gonna worry your children. So he just never brought it to my attention. He just, you know, dealt with it on his own.
The majority of the kids on the basketball team were not Catholic. You know, and these guys were. You know, and they went to Catholic schools and they were successful in basketball at their Catholic schools, you know, and then suddenly they come here and we got all these public school kids here and, you know, they don't get to play. And I think that was an issue. I think that was, you know, and as I told one of them sometime afterwards, someone had said that to me, I said, hey, I wasn't in charge of admissions. I didn't ask them to put one kid in the school, including Esteban. They just said that the direction and the image of the program needed to go in a different direction. And I said, well, I don't know which direction they would like it to go. We just lost in the Final Four. You know, we've averaged 20 wins a year for 4 years. So I don't know what direction, and as far as the image, yeah, were there some things that I think we got to get better at? Yeah, a couple. But I don't think it was, you know, enough to fire someone.
So I guess they figure, you know, if we kill the head, the body gonna fall. So once he was gone, you know what I'm saying, I was gone. So, you know, I knew it wasn't gonna be a good fit for me staying there anyway. So, you know, I felt like I'll be just ruining my welcome.
People that followed him, that people that were almost infatuated by his talents. Just like most entertainers, if you got that special talent, most people want to have a piece of you. They want to be a part of you in some shape, form, or fashion.
You know, every girl in the neighborhood, you know, older sisters, moms, you know, just after you. You know what I mean? It's a different, I mean, I can't say it's humbling because at that young age, I was too young to know what humbling meant. You know what I mean? I was just out there with my neck cut off. So, I mean, it was crazy. Just, you know, women from different walks of life. I mean, and it's like at that time of my life, like, I didn't have to go looking for them. They came looking for me. I was young, you know, immature, and, you know, she happened to come at a time where, you know, I was trying to figure out where my life was gonna go. So, you know, it was not hard for me to be a father for her because I was still young myself. It was just, I just wasn't ready at that time to try to be one because I didn't know where my life was going at that time. You know, it's not It's not a good relationship. You know, we barely speak. You know, it's just difficult and hard to not have a relationship, you know, with your child. So it's just difficult.
After Esteban's sophomore year, there was kind of a void of information. What was going to happen to him?
I left and went to Maine. That's on the corner of the earth. Other than that, it's just trees and elks and snow. And nobody knew where I was until, you know, I played a couple games, and then, you know, people started hearing, oh, he's out in Maine.
When you hear that kind of talent is leaving the state, then, you know, there's an interest in following how he does or how he's going to do it. Coach Good had this reputation as a huge disciplinarian and had produced a lot of guys that went on to Division I scholarships, and it was a well-deserved reputation.
You know, I studied. I got my grades to play basketball. When I got down there, I got accused of rape the second day I was down there. Because, you know, I'm down there crying. I'm about to, like, the police is there, like, they're about to lock me up. But she recanted her story after noticing that the guy that she encountered was much shorter than me. So that's how my first couple days started in Maine. You know, so it was not, that just wasn't for me. So I left. I know I couldn't just up and leave because, like I said, I wasn't in trouble. But I knew how to leave because we wasn't allowed to have girls in our dorm. The next morning, I had a plane ticket on my door. So I was happy. I packed my shit, and they gave me a cab, and the cab dropped me off. And I went home.
Kenny Gregory and Esteban Weaver of Independence might be the best backcourt the city has ever seen. Like any good duo, they make each other better.
I feel it's helped my game out a little bit. It's, you know, helped me pick up my intensity, helped me play a little harder during the games. You know, I feel we just know if we come together, things will be well.
He's made me better because, you know, he learned how, you know, to get open and stuff, and I'm starting to learn how to pass a lot better and stuff by him being open.
What's been fun about it?
The dunks.
They've definitely made each other better players, but with this dynamic duo, you have to ask the question, who's the best? Is it Esteban or is it Kenny?
I would never, ever say which one is a better player. And if you take either one out of our lineup, you know, we may not be where we are.
People try to compare us. I feel like the comparison should be over since we're both as one on the same team.
If I had to rate anybody as far as myself, I'm always pick myself. But, you know, I think Kenny's the, you know, closest person to me.
Gregory and Weaver. It might not get any better than that. At Independence, Vince Kelly, 6 Sports.
Wow.
If I could only just show up to you, huh?
Kidding. That's poetry in motion.
There was probably a lot expected with, you know, what we had with Esteban and Kenny being two of the outstanding players, you know, in the state actually.
During that period of time, you had about 7 or 8 Division I ball players. You had to look at Esteban. You had Kenny Gregory. You had Doug Davis. You had my son Michael. You had all these guys, man, at these different schools. But when you had Kenny and Esteban at Independence, man, you had your work cut out. You had to bring your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner, man, because you had to defend Esteban, handling the ball, doing everything else. Then you had Kenny, the Skywalker. Every time one of those teams played, you had to be there.
I can distinctly remember being at the Brookhaven Independence game in the Coliseum with Esteban Weaver and Kenny Gregory, a game that was standing room only.
They were standing all the way around at the top, 6,000 in there.
Nobody missed a high school game during that era from the 94. I mean, take it back, yeah, from 94 to 97. Nobody missed a high school game in this area. You could pick and choose. You're gonna go see a star at one of those games.
So as far as the pure talent level, as far as physical talent, you know, some people would say Mike and Kenny at that time.
Another reason why I didn't want to come here because I wanted to play with Kenny. Because I felt like that, I feel like we can do something. I feel like we can do something as a basketball team here at Independence. And not only him, we had, we had Von Carter, Kendrick Miller. We had a real good basketball team.
From Independence High in Columbus, Ohio.
Kenny at the time was the higher prospect because they was calling him the next Jordan. But he was phenomenal.
Something that people on the outside, I think, looked at us and said there's going to be some problems because you've got two, as you said, high-level players. And are they going to want to be the show? And it really never worked out that way.
A lot of people thinking that me and Kenny didn't like each other or I didn't like him because of certain reasons. I never had a bad bone in my body for Kenny. Kenny was he was a good guy. He's a good stand-up dude, real funny. And I don't know if people knew that. Like, Kenny was funny. He was hilarious. We would get together sometime, sit around, crack jokes with each other, and then, when it was time to go to class, he'd go to class, I cut class.
Name of the show is Real Sports, Real Talk. I'm gonna be real with you. I heard stories from Esteban would drink right before the game.
That's true.
Two.
That's true.
Could have been one of his greatest games because the outcome of it was him probably scoring 25 points.
We like that feeling of looseness. It's not we're not out there drunk.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just the looseness. Get a couple beers up in you, maybe smoke a joint or two, and it's just what it was. I mean, and it's so funny about it. I know the way the world we live in today is frowned upon, but back in the 60s and 70s when my uncle was playing, that's all they did.
Right.
Sit right at the park, and I know things have changed and, you got different laws and everything, but I mean, it's the same thing. When I grew up, that's the same thing my dad and them did. They sat in the corners, drank beers, smoked joints, and went out and played basketball all night long.
But you was able still to get 30 on it?
I mean, because I liked it. I liked the actual feeling of it. The way it, had me loose. And it wasn't all the time. It was just sometimes I would just, some of my teammates, we'd get together just for a little ritual, drink a beer here and there before the game. But, like I said, I'm not condoning it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what I did. I didn't force nobody to do it.
After practice, he would always ask me, "Hey man, what are you about to do?" I'm like, "I have to go home." Like, my mom is probably sitting by the door waiting on me to come in. If I'm telling my mom I'm going to be there at 7:30, I better be there at 7:29. I think it was just like we were so close, yet so far apart.
But when it came to basketball, we lived on the same planet. And I really felt like we can do something. And our expectations when I came here was to win the state.
He and Gregory had a tremendous skill set, both of them. But, basketball is such a game of rhythm, and if you're not in rhythm, the further along you get in the tournament, if you're going to go all the way, at some point, somebody is going to make you play half-court offense and half-court defense. And if you can't execute that, you're going to lose. And that's what happened to them that night.
When people bring up state championship teams from Central Ohio, like, we can't be in that conversation. And I know we had better talent and, a better team.
It would have been nice to go on beyond where we made it, but it didn't work out. So I just wish Esteban would have stayed.
Just being stubborn and frustrated about basketball, frustrated about other things. So, I just dropped out of school. I just needed that time away. Because before then, you got to understand that was my senior year. From before my senior year, where it all started from, like 6th, 7th grade. So from that time all the way up until my senior year, I was just bombarded with basketball. So, once we lost, I just was like, this is a perfect opportunity for me to really put it on the shelf and just leave it alone. And that's what I did.
I think sometimes when you're that good at a young age, it scares you. You're not sure what's in front of you. I do think it sets a little bit level of fear in your head that I'm not so sure this is exactly what's going to happen to me.
I think that's probably where he ran into. He ran into a crossroad of, yeah, I'm good, but what do I do with this talent?
The kind of person he was, man, he just had a lot of people that just wanted to hang on to Esteban, and a lot of them didn't mean any good. And so when you have talents and abilities, sometimes you got to close yourself in and be choosy. who you want in your life, because everybody comes to your life does not bring the right thing.
I took the things off because I was staining them.
Oh,
He can
okay.
take them dogs off. Haven't been out of the house.
We got some. Oh, is that the pan for the hot dogs? Dad, somebody grab that pan, please. Oh, yeah, look, they call me. And I always wanted to be, you know, around my father. You know, I wanted to, you know, be like him, see what he was like, see what he did. So, you know, I was kind of in a confused stage growing up.
I think that's what hurts a lot of kids in the neighborhoods, because they don't have a strong male figure. You can have them in the neighborhood, but are they in your house? That's the key. Are they in your life?
When he was growing up, he became, I guess the word might be self-reliant. He didn't have many people around. He didn't have a father figure. He had to do things on his own. And then what happened, when things are going good, it's easy to be self-reliant and okay, you move along, things are good. But when you face some adversity, like he did during the course of those 4 or 5 years, and you're self-reliant, you don't have anything else to lean back on. And that's when you kind of go off the beaten path a little bit.
I think it's vital that when you got a kid that has that ability, that he has to have a strong male figure that's always around, to where he has to answer to somebody, especially when it comes to the African American families. It's so important.
The statistics are overwhelming that talk about, I mean, like 70-75% of all of the males that are in jail grew up in a single family home, you know, with no male.
I taught sociology in high school. And one of the things that I'd always say, and being a coach, is, you know, mothers would raise their daughters and love their sons. And what I mean by that is a lot of the kids come from a single parent households headed by the mother. And out of the same household, the daughter would have A and B schoolwork and be doing well, but the son would be barely skating through, because the mother didn't know how to teach a boy how to become a man.
My family was trying to, you know, trying to get somebody, you know, stern in my life to, you know, to try to look up to, be around, you know, do positive stuff with. But, you know, I just went down to my other family, which has always been, you know what I'm saying, you know, guys in the streets, you know, family in the streets.
Beanie Bynum and Greg Wimbush brought him to me and asked me here at the Ashburn Center if I would work Esty out. And I started working Esty out, and I just stopped the workout. I said, Esty, I know what you can do on the court, no doubt about that. Let's just talk man to man. And we talked man to man. And after we talked, and Esty probably remember this here at the center, at that time, he said nobody ever expressed themselves to him the way I did.
He had a lot of work to do with his character off the floor and learning how to become a part of something that was bigger than him. And as his coach, I think that would have been the thing that I would have done, was to make him earn his way onto the floor by his citizenship in the classroom, and in the hallways, and in the community. Was the very beginning. And I still think that that's very important. I personally believe that you play the game the way you live your life. The hype kind of got to him, and he thought that as long as he could probably score and play the game of basketball, he could pretty much do what he wanted to do, because a lot of people around him let him do that because he was Esteban Weaver.
In our community here, you had the guys that were drug dealers that would give guys shoes and give them things. So after a while, man, if people give you everything, in our culture, we call it a welfare mentality. So you think you're entitled to things that you don't earn. It starts in school.
I would, you know, when it was time for basketball season, I'd be smart. When it was time for basketball season to be over, I'd be dumb. So a lot of people just thought that, oh, he can't read and he can't do this just because I chose not to. Not because I couldn't read or write, I just chose not to because I played the system.
The culture at that time was a lot of athletes, and still to a certain extent, are giving more chances than the average person. And it just leads to a downfall.
I'm pretty sure it was a few times that I shouldn't have played because of my grades, but you know, that happens to athletes all over the world. You know, teachers changing grades for them and looking the other way, you know. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm not proud of it, you know, because it cripples us.
It takes a measure of discipline to get to that next level, meaning that, you know, the NBA executives are investing millions of dollars in the athlete. They want a return on that athlete.
I went to go take a visit to Tallahassee Community College. I thought I was taking a placement test, but I was taking a GED test. And, you know what I mean? I took it and passed it. I had worked so hard to get myself back into the eyes of the NBA. Mm-hmm. I had 3 teams constantly coming to follow me every game. I think it was Cleveland, Detroit, and Indiana, I think. But they was always there. They followed me everywhere. I was ready.
You was almost right there.
I was right there. We had just came back from the tournament, which we ain't been there since 1969. So now, you know, Central State is now being seen again, you know, on the map. So we come back home. My stepbrother had passed away, and this was the first time that I had ever dealt with a death, like somebody close to me. I have a responsibility to be there with my family, but he didn't see it. You know, I needed to be in the gym working out. So basically, fuck my brother. I need you in the gym working out. So that was a no-brainer for me. It was, fuck you, I'm going home. I came back, I think like a couple days later, and I'm coming down on campus, and somebody just literally walked up to me and said, I heard you got kicked out of school. And I was like, kicked out of school? I don't know, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. And come to find out, they did kick me out of school. They didn't call my parents.
Wow.
None, they just kicked me out of school, and then I had my best friend, old school Chase Riley, him and his wife at the time, had went up to the school and was trying to plead with him to, you know, they trying to figure out like how did he get suspended, or how did y'all kick him off the team? His grades was fine, y'all just came back, like what's going on? They wasn't giving him no type of answers or anything. So, you know, we just left it like that. It was already etched in stone.
When you look at the process of basketball, it's like life. And a lot of people's lives can't mix with basketball. How many guys come out of the same neighborhood make it to the pros? It's usually only one of you. And that one person usually has to separate themselves from everyone else. And you have to do that in life to do that. And everyone doesn't do that. They don't understand that. So I see the process of basketball. He believed in himself. He had a passion about it. But he didn't understand the process is what's going to get you to the top.
If there's somebody that's trying to coach you to help you get better, then you got to be able to shut off the street and pay attention to the improvement. I mean, that's the great aspect of LeBron James. LeBron was not first team All-Ohio as a freshman in high school. It just drove him. You know, that kind of disappointment is the kind of thing that would derail Esteban. You know, he had multiple incidents in high school, you know, where a disappointment or a setback, or, you know, go to the locker room and change and have a seat on the bench. You know, that's not a positive situation for him or his team. And you know, you got to be able to learn and grow.
I was a crutch to Esteban, and I needed him to become a man. He needs to make money. He needs to pay his bills, and do the things that we all have to do.
Let's look at it like this. We practice to get better at things. And so if I practice 2 hours a day of being accountable and then practice 22 hours a day of not being accountable, the 22 hours is going to kick the 2 hours in the butt. And that's what I mean when I say you play the game the way you live your life.
Talent isn't everything. Not nothing to take away from Esteban. He's a great talent, one of the greatest talents I've ever seen. But you also got to have that background or that foundation to kind of help you through tough times. At times he had it, at times he didn't.
It's just one of those times where you just come to realization after everything that you've been through, you know, the ups and downs, the bumps, the bruises, the highs, the lows, the happies, the sads. I just knew at that point after, you know, like double dutch. You know, it's like you waiting to jump in. You got the ropes turning, so you wait for that perfect time to jump in. And I think with me, I was always that double dutch guy. I was right there, but I was always, you know, hesitant to go and never jumped in. So. So once the ambulance came in, I didn't want to make a big deal about it. I was able to stand up. I was just, you know, it went through. It was like a through and through, and it went through my back. Like it was like it went in this way and it came out, and then it went across my back over here. We was in the crowd. You know, a couple of guys that they was beefing with was in the crowd with us, and you know that's how they tried to get at him. And it just so happened I was in the line of fire. So you know, and I see the guy that shot me. When I got out the hospital, I stayed with my homeboy Chris, and I just, you know, just up in the bedroom, and I just had time to just think to myself about, you know, where's life going from here. Over time, then, you know, wear and tear, and you got people, you know, who don't care. So, I mean, it's just a result of just time. You know, we all get older, you know, prime example, you know, everything don't stay the same. Everything, you know, everything gets older, no matter what it is. So, you know, this is just a change right here. It's just a, you know, it's a process, and it's change. You know, like my grandmother, you know, she was a family-oriented woman. I mean, you know, when anybody in the family that was struggling that need help, you know what I'm saying, she moved on me. Like at one point in time, it was like 5 people living in the house. You know, so that just and she wouldn't have it no other way. Like she didn't want to see her kids, grandbabies, you know, kids out in the street. So, you know, she moved us in. And I just, you know, I just felt like it's, you know, partly my fault that she lost the house, because, you know, if I would have had my shit together and did what I was supposed to do, like, you know, she had still had this house, and now that she gone, you know, it hurts a lot more, because I never got an opportunity to, you know, make good on what I said I was gonna do. And I always told her that I was gonna get the house for her. You know, she always was having problems and just always worrying about the house, and I'm like, you know, Grandma, everything's gonna work out. Like, I'm gonna get the house for you. We're gonna fix it up real nice. And I feel like I sold her a dream. I feel like I lied to her from the beginning, because it was just, I never had my shit together. I punish myself for a lot of things that my family go through. You know, I get real heavy on myself, because I felt like that, you know what I mean, it was me that was supposed to, you know, get them up out of there, and I didn't. You know, now that I need to change my life, because, you know, my way ain't working, so.
you understand this. There's another Esteban Weaver in this city. There's one in every city, and they come along every so often.
He might be able to tell that kid, hey, I was you in 8th grade. I was you in the 9th grade. I didn't do all the right things. I'm not in jail. I'm not dead, but I didn't make it to where I should have got to.
The story is more than just basketball. You know, it's the good and the bad. Of course, he was a great basketball player. Everyone knows that. But I think the good and the bad, decision making, just letting the kids, it has to always be about the kids and letting the kids know.
Make sure y'all listen to each other. Listen to your heart, not your mind. Listen to your heart. You know what's wrong and you know what's right in life. And the one thing I can tell y'all, and a good friend told me this a long time ago, and this was when I was young, getting in trouble, and he was one of them good friends that used to try to get me out the streets. And he would always come, we'd get in arguments because I wouldn't want to leave, because he seen that I had something better in the future. But me, I was so cloudy with my mind, I couldn't see it, because this is what I like to do. I like to hang in the streets. I like to smoke weed. I like to sell drugs. I like to break in cars. I like to steal cars. That's what I used to do. Esteban Weaver's a human being.
Okay.
And he makes mistakes, just
Okay.
like everybody else. And I've learned from him. I've learned to be a better father, a better person, a better friend, and just to know who I am as a person. Because a lot of people didn't know me, even living in Columbus, and they would pass me all the time, shake my hand, tell me how much of a good ball player I am, but they never knew me.
I didn't see him as Esteban, the basketball player. That was my dude. You know, what he did on the basketball court, that was him. You know, but as far as his and our relationship, it didn't. We barely even talked about basketball. He can see if you're having a bad moment, and he can just walk up to you and give you a hug and make you feel like, okay, everything gonna be all right. Everybody don't know that about it, but he can see that.
I had come back. I ran into some distractions over in the country where I was playing, and I came back, and I felt like nobody wanted to deal with me. I felt like I didn't know where to go, and I ran into Esteban at a pool hall, my favorite pool hall, and I told him, I said, "Hey, big bro, man, I ran into some trouble, and I don't know what to do about it, man. I feel this way and I feel that way." And he said, "Man, don't worry about that, man." And for whatever reason, it was sarcastic, and he meant it. He meant, hey, you know, remember who you're talking to. You know, remember that I've had my share of trouble and I've had my share of problems and distractions. He is he knows I'm coming for the torch regardless, you know. He knows I know what he means to this city, because I know that I understand the power and the pain that comes with it. But there won't ever be another Esty. Ever. I mean, his drive, his heart. Oh, there's only so many people that come around. You know, people like that don't come around a lot. And you know, his mother birthed him, but he belonged to us. He belonged to this city. But now, when I saw him that day, man, we talked for about 4 hours. I think we might have only talked about basketball for about 20 minutes. And to know that he backed me because he had a certain level of understanding, I can't thank him enough. He'll never completely understand it, but I love that man.
Everybody see a little bit of Esteban in them. So he's somebody that you can touch, somebody you can feel, somebody who would take the time to stop and talk with you. You know, Esty is a person that was accessible. So you know, when you look at some of the so-called failures as far as not making it, if you want to call that a failure, everybody's had failures in their life.
A lot of times he texts me when I'm going through my lows. You know, he'll leave me alone when I'm on a high note, when I have some good games. But you know, when I have some bad games, he'll let me know that just to keep my head up, things like that. But in particular, it's really the things he says to me in person. You know, just about things away from the court. He doesn't even have to be dealing with basketball. He'll tell me that everybody doesn't love you out here. And that's real. That a lot of people want to see you fail. He tells me things like that. He keeps it real with me. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. So
he's straight up front. He's straightforward with you. He'll tell you exactly how it is, and that's the thing I love about Esteban. Through our interaction, he never ever shot me a line of bull. He always told me exactly what it was, and I respect him for that.
No shame in his game. You know what I mean? He's like, hey, it's all out here. Y'all can judge me if you want. He's never been too good for anybody.
Even when I saw him a few weeks ago, to see him come over and run and just give me a hug, man, I haven't seen that spot for years, man. But to show you he ran over there and didn't say, hold him, he gave me a genuine hug. And that's to show you the kind of person he is. He's genuine. And I love that kid like he's my own son. I mean that. I love him like he's my own son.
I've seen him stop and just give, autographs for those that, know him, and people talk to older people that want to ask, questions. He don't stray away from questions people ask him, even the tough ones.
In basketball or life, what's your proudest moment?
Knowing that my grandmother was at peace when she died. That was my greatest moment in my life. That was one of my prouder moments. To know she was at peace when she passed away. She wasn't in pain no more. She wasn't suffering. She was at peace.
How would you like for the Esteban Weaver story to end?
Well, how I would like the story to end is to end in the middle, because it's never going to be the ending with me.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to end more or less like in the middle, because it's always going to be something with Esteban Weaver. I'm always going to have my hands in something, whether it's in the community or whether it's doing stuff with children or doing stuff with my children.
I see the speeches that he's doing. I see the kids that he's trying to talk to, and that just warms my heart.
That's awesome.
So I see him doing what I wanted him to do for himself.
Esty is a good-hearted person, and his book is still being written. I think Esty has more to offer off the court than he had on the court.
The bottom line is, man, basketball is not life. Life is life.
Here we are right now, still living the dream and dreaming.
Esteban was somebody that was a hero to everybody. So I say heroes come and go, but legends live forever. So he was a combination of both those things. And with that there, as the years go on, just like the fish that got away, the stories get bigger and bigger every year.
Coming out.
The greatest.
Love you, Esteban. Keep doing your thing, boy.
I'm glad to have known him when he was young and see what he turned out to be.
He's a hardwood classic. Period. Buckeye guy, and I'm out.
I've known him all my life, and I've looked up to him my entire life. And the only one that's gonna take him out is me.
I met this young man, he was like 9 or 10 years old, had a Boston Celtic hat that he pulled down over his eyes. I'd be like, Esty, let your forehead breathe. Let it breathe.
This is the ball that we use in the Worthington Summer League. This is the actual ball Esteban scored 55 points with. It's a little worn now, but I kept this ball, and I might even have to give it to him someday, but I'm not gonna give it to him yet. But this is the ball that he scored 55 points with.
That's Victor. He always do that. But when he died, I'm gonna stop watching him. Because Catherine already died, and I almost stopped watching him. But yeah, this one will be good too, because Dylan just woke up. They thought Dylan was dead. He wanted like a shot, and his thing flatlined. So we gotta find out what's wrong with Dylan.